Hello everyone, this is Soy Studios and welcome back to Questions in Catholicism. If you're new to the channel, I post one of these videos maybe once a week or bi-weekly, something like that, because one of the biggest things about my life is my faith, my Catholic faith specifically, and I have a lot of people on the channel that are subscribers that maybe grew up Catholic and don't know a lot about their own belief, or maybe are Protestant, don't know a lot about the Catholic faith, or just they're not Christian, maybe they're a different religion, or atheist, or whatnot, deist. These are just fun videos for me to be able to just share to you why I believe what I believe. One of the biggest questions I had when I was a Protestant, before I became Catholic, was what's the deal with purgatory? Why do we need purgatory? And I could go into the scriptural evidence, because there are several passages in the Bible that talk about the concept of purgatory. The word purgatory isn't found in the Bible, but the concept is sort of like how the word Bible isn't found in the Bible, and yet all Christians believe in the Bible. The word Trinity, Holy Trinity, isn't found in the Bible, but the concept of the Holy Trinity is in the Bible. There's a lot of things that are in the Bible that are not named. We give it names just to help our minds. So the purification process that is required, that's essential for us between the point of death and when we enter heaven, that's what Catholics call purgatory. You might ask yourself, why do we even need a purification process if we're going to heaven? Well, let's just get a couple misconceptions out of the way, I guess. First off, if you're in purgatory, that means you're going to heaven. You cannot be in purgatory and have people pray for you, and then you were going to go to hell, but enough people prayed for you, now you're going to heaven. That's not how it works. When you die, there's judgment, and it's either hell or heaven. And if you're going to heaven, a lot of us will probably have to go through purgatory first, which, remember, the term purgatory is the term that we use for the purification of ourselves before we enter heaven. We would all agree that we're sinful, that we're dirty, even though that Christ has made us new, whole in his resurrection on earth. We've been, sanctified, justified. We still sin. Maybe you don't. I still sin on the daily basis. And so when I die, I'm gonna have these dirty rags on. And so if there wasn't a thing called purgatory, I'd get to the gates of heaven in these dirty rags, and even if Saint Peter was there to welcome me in or whatnot, let's say someone was there to welcome me in, even if they said, come on in, it wouldn't feel right to go into heaven to see Jesus in these dirty rags. I would want to go and get clean. I'd want to clean myself up, maybe take a shower. Hopefully they'd give me some new clothes, and then I'd go, see God, see Jesus, and enter heaven. I'd feel okay about that. So throughout our earthly existence, there's a lot of temporal effects that sin has, and a lot of that is just attachments. Heaven is supposed to be like a perfect place, a happy place, the place where we go to worship God forever, the place where we get to be forever united to God in his heavenly church forever. And heaven can't be that paradise if we still have earthly attachments. A few years ago, I really loved Star Wars. I loved Star Wars so much to the point where I felt like if I didn't have Star Wars, I couldn't be happy. And a lot of people have that. It might not be Star Wars. It could be maybe it's your dog, your pet dog, your favorite pet. Without them, you could not be happy. Or maybe it's people, or it's things that you do. Maybe it's sports. Maybe it's watching sports. Or maybe it's activities, whatever it is. There are things in our life that we put a lot of our heart into, and a lot of it holds on to our joy almost, which, these things aren't necessarily bad. As I said, having a pet dog and loving it a lot isn't bad. But if these things aren't in heaven, then it has so much of our heart that when we get there, we will feel slight disappointment. I mean, imagine if you were told that you were going to this amazing place, best vacation spot ever, and you really love your dog, and they're like, we'll take care of everything, we'll pay for the ticket, pay for the plane, we'll pack all your stuff. When you get there, everything that you want, you'll have. And you get there, except your dog isn't there. You're and everything else is there, everything else there is perfect, but your dog isn't there, you're gonna feel a little disappointed, and there is no room for that feeling in heaven. And so what do we have to do? We have to go through this purification process of detaching ourselves from bad things, and from good things that aren't going to be there in heaven. So that's one of the reasons why we need purgatory. Another is to preserve our free will, our ultimate free will. And we have to talk about freedom for this. We have to understand that freedom exists not so that we can do what we like, but to do what we ought. That's what true freedom is. Because if you think about it from the lens of what does sin do? When we make a free decision to sin, we are becoming more enslaved to it. So we're becoming less free. Having freedom is not being able to choose sin. It's actively choosing the good. And ultimately, the more we choose the good, the more freer we'll become, because sin leads to enslavement, not just in this metaphorical sense of like, oh, you're a slave to Satan, but whenever we sin, like it changes us, it hurts us, it wounds us, it makes us less joyous. It leads us along paths that like we lack fruits of the Spirit to be able to just live life to the fullest. Like we become smaller things bug us more, you know, or we become selfish easier or impatient. And the more we say no to sin, the more we do good things, the more we cling closer to God, to Jesus, to the gospel, to living like Christ. We then have gifts of the Holy Spirit. We then have fruits of the Holy Spirit that come forth from that, which could be patience. So like maybe a long line, you know, that would have bothered you and ruined your day a year ago, maybe you've been growing through patience, and now it no longer bothers you. And now a day in which you would have been miserable, you're still happy. And notice how the world didn't change. It was your heart that changed. Like joy comes from the disposition of the heart, not necessarily the circumstances in which you are in. So with that, when we get to heaven, in order for us to preserve our free will, but no one sins in heaven. So how does that work? In order to find the ultimate potential for our freedom, remember, freedom is the power to do what we ought, not to do what we like. To do what we ought is to do good all the time, but not like out of coercion, but to freely choose the good every single time. Meaning to freely choose God every single time. That's what loving God is. That's the ultimate love that Jesus wants us to get to. We love God so much that we choose Him every time we have an option. And so, at least for me right now, I don't choose the good every time. When I'm tempted, you know, sometimes I sin. And so I'm not ready to be in a place to enter heaven yet, because I still have concupiscence. Word meaning, you know, like a draw to sin. I don't know what people think, like, without purgatory existing, like when you die and if you go to heaven, you're magically rewired to never want to sin ever, and be able to choose that. Like you flip a switch and suddenly your free will is gone. Because if there's no process, then that's no longer freedom in heaven, because now it's not that you have been purified through purgatory, so now you're at a state where you want to choose the good every time. If there's no in between, if there's no purification, you get to heaven, and now it's more like, in this scenario, if you were tempted, you can't choose the bad. If it's like a magical rewiring, like you have to choose the good now. So now it's like there was no purification, there's no free will, it's now not your choice, you're now just perfect and a robot. So God in His goodness wants us to maintain our freedom, to maintain our free will, and the only way we can maintain our free will is so that we are purified, so that we can unlock, or more so God can unlock in us the full potential of what freedom is, which is to always do what we ought. And what we ought is to obey Christ and to love Christ with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, to never sin again, but to want to never sin again. In a very logical sense, if there is absolutely zero purification process before you enter heaven, heaven is not going to be the most happiest place for we get there, we find out that some of the earthly things that we really love are not there, you're going to be slightly disappointed. And for those of you who say, well, God will be there, so I'm going to be happy, I'm just going to forget about all those things. Well, God is with you today. And I think a really good question to ask ourselves, a really good reality check is, if I lost a lot of the material stuff, the worldly stuff, whether it's possessions or whether it's friendship or whatever it is, if I lost that, would I still be happy? Because we still have God. Would I still be happy? And if the answer is yes, then you probably aren't going to go to purgatory. If the answer is, I think I'd be sad if I lost some of this stuff. It just means that your heart is broken. And it's easy to give our heart to things that are not God. And once again, not all of it is bad. Some of it's objectively good. But in order to get to heaven, and to be happy in heaven, and to have free will in heaven, we need to make sure that we prep ourselves for heaven. And if we don't prep ourselves in this life, then we need to be able to prep ourselves in the afterlife. Yeah, that's my attempt of a sort of logical explanation of why we need purgatory, of why purgatory needs to exist. If you'd like me to talk about the scriptural support and evidence of purgatory, then leave a comment down in the comment section below, let me know, and I will put out a part 2 video of purgatory. If you have any other questions about Catholicism, or really just anything, comment them below as well, and I'll try to answer them as best as possible in another one of these videos. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This is Soria Studios, Questions in Catholicism. Hope you have an amazing day, and God bless.